Okay, good morning. I'm Dante Ang, President and CEO of the Manila Times. Welcome to another roundtable. Today we have Ambassador Marat Pavlov of the Embassy of Russia in Manila. He was born in 1955, graduated from the Moscow State Institute of International Relations in 1978, and the Diplomatic Academy of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation in 1991. He joined the diplomatic service in 1978, took various diplomatic positions in the central office and abroad. From 2007 to 2013, he was senior counselor at the Embassy of Russia in Italy. From 2013 to 2015, he was chief counselor of the 4th European Department of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Russia. And from 2015 to 2020, he was consul general in Genova, in Italy. He was designated ambassador of the Russian Federation to the Philippines by decree of the President of the Russian Federation in September 21, 2020. He is an ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary. He is an ambassador who is fluent both in English and Italian. Ambassador Pavlov, thank you and good morning.
Thank you so much for I appreciate your introduction. Good morning, all of you, and I will try to answer your questions.
Thank you, sir. We have a lot of questions regarding the pandemic, but before we get to that, may we just get from you, sir, like what is the situation in Russia today with COVID, and maybe what keeps you busy? What are your priorities as ambassador to the Philippines?
You have combined the questions, but in any way about the situation in Russia is, from my point of view, is quite manageable because first of all, the number of new cases is going down. For example, the average number of new cases during the recent 7 days has dropped to something like 8.7 thousand cases. The second point is our doctors know how to treat COVID-19 patients using certified drugs such as Vavipiravir, widely known as Avigan. It's last year the Russians had proposed using this Avigan in the Philippines. Unfortunately, we have no response. But in any way, we have situation rather calm, I can say. And yes, when we have a spike of COVID-19 cases in some Russian region, the Russian government, in cooperation with local authorities, builds modular hospitals in a short period of time. So we took the situation under control to treat COVID patients. And now we are implementing mass vaccination in Russia.
Okay.
Mass vaccination, unfortunately, there is some hesitation. I don't want you to know that not all of people of our population is ready to be vaccinated. The situation is over the world, also in the Philippines, as I know.
Yes.
So now we have done some kind of 25 million shots, including 10 million people fully vaccinated, and 15 million people at least receive one dose. But we are trying to accelerate this pace of vaccination. And now almost all restrictions related to COVID-19 have been lifted in Russia. We conduct face-to-face classes in school and universities. Kindergartens, theaters, cinemas, churches are open. Okay. We are holding events with mass gathering also. Of course, implementing of sanitary protocols.
Sure.
For example, I can share with you that on June 2 to 5 in St. Petersburg, it will be held the International Economic Forum. And some high-ranking officials of the Philippines were invited to attend the forum via online or visiting Russia. So Sputnik V, it's the most vaccine that's most popular vaccines that we used in the Russian Federation. Was approved in many countries. And I'd like you to know that one country in the European continent, San Marino, has become one of the first country to start lifting COVID-19 restriction and to open its economy based on tourism after the mass vaccination by Sputnik.
Wow.
So we have this contribution to the health population in San Marino. Yes, one can say that the population in San Marino is not so big. It's rather small, 35,000. But I would like to draw your attention that San Marino used only the Russian vaccine. And since then, no new COVID cases and no local transmission was occurred. So situation is rather clean.
Everything is it? Would you say that things are normal in Russia now, or their people are still cautious? Is it back to normal in Russia?
Normal, but I've said that we should push the mass vaccination. And also, you know that my president also was vaccinated, and now he is feeling rather well. He's working hardly, and I think that it's a very good example.
Right.
For all
I know when the Sputnik vaccines arrive here, I don't know if you've heard of it. I heard from officials from Manila that people were lining up. They're very excited to get the Sputnik vaccine. Can I turn to my colleague Red, who would like to ask some more questions about Sputnik?
Yes, good morning. Yes, good morning, Mr. Ambassador. Of course, the Philippines has received its first supply of Sputnik. That's about 30,000, equivalent to the 15,000 doses of the first dose and the second dose. We know that Sputnik has two doses. The has different doses for it for the second dose. So right now, our health officials are saying that the Philippines is confident of its handling of the vaccine. So they're asking, or my first question would be, when will be the remaining supply of Sputnik arrive in the Philippines? Do we have a definite timetable for that, Mr. Ambassador?
It's a very important question. I'm asking myself. When it will be a huge amount will arrive. We are expecting a new delivery of vaccine before the end of this May.
This May?
Yes, this month, yes. I don't want yet to disclose the exact number of doses to be shipped to the Philippines this month, but I would like to remind you that our COVID-19 cooperation is being implemented within the framework of understanding reached during the phone call of my president, Vladimir Putin, president of the Philippines, Mr. Duterte, on April 13. It shows the importance of our cooperation in this field. And the volume of doses will gradually increase to have reached 20 million doses by the end of this year.
20 million, wow.
We will contribute to combating pandemic in the Philippines. You know that Russian scientists have developed 4 vaccines, including Sputnik V and the Sputnik Light. Is later our invention, the Sputnik Light. I would like to say some words about the Sputnik Light. It's a single shot vaccine containing the first component of Sputnik 5. So it was also created in the Gamaleya National Research Center using the well-known technology that proved its safety and efficacy. The Sputnik Light efficacy is 80%, higher than that of many two doses vaccines. It's compatible with standard vaccine storage, +2 to +8 degrees, and logistic requirements. So Sputnik Light has already been authorized in Russia, Angola, and Venezuela. And I know that there is some interest in the Filipino leadership to acquire also Sputnik Light. So we, as for the COVID cooperation, we are open for any kind of cooperation with reliable local partners that have solid technological capabilities. I mean that we can not only deliver the Sputnik 5, but we can also propose bilateral cooperation in manufacturing the vaccine. That is very important.
Could you talk about that bilateral cooperation and manufacturing? Are you negotiating, or is Gamaleya negotiating with a Philippine company? Is that what you're saying? They're
Yes,
talking about possibly
Russian Direct Investment Fund.
Right.
It's a Russian governmental body responsible for distribution of Sputnik 5 abroad. It's also, as far as I know, it was published an interview of the chairman of this general director of this Russian Direct Investment Fund, who disclosed that there are some local partners in the Philippines with which the Russian Direct Investment Fund would like to start the direct negotiation.
That's fantastic. Wow. Red, do you have some more questions?
Yes, Mr. Ambassador. I've been into the Sputnik Light press conference by the RDIF, and they said that the vaccine, the single dose, the first dose of the vaccine has an 80% efficacy. When we ask our vaccination head, Secretary Galvez, he said that they are open. The vaccine panel is now exploring options for the Sputnik Light vaccine, and they may also include it in the country's bouquet of vaccines. Mr. Ambassador, is Russia capable of producing enough supply to some of the countries that have deals with Sputnik V? I know that there are many countries who have signed deals or have approved emergency use for the vaccine. Is Russia capable of producing and supplying vaccines to those countries that have already gave its approval to the vaccine, including the Philippines, for that matter?
It's a very interesting question, but I am not the producer of the manufacturing plant. I am only the ambassador. But I think that the production of vaccine in the Russian Federation now is growing up every month.
Okay.
And you should take into account that as of now, Sputnik 5 has been approved in 66 countries.
Wow.
Rather big number as far as I understand. Yes. With total population of 3.2 billion people. So we would like to satisfy all the requests, but as far as I know, the number is, of the Philippines, it was the 52nd countries to approve, to grant us the so-called EUA, Emergency Use Authorization.
Right.
So we will try to satisfy all the requests, but we should wait. That is why we would like to propose the local production. For example, on May 14, we became the first foreign made vaccine Sputnik V became the first foreign-made vaccine used in India, contributing in the world's largest COVID vaccination campaign. So the Russian Direct Investment Fund, I mentioned it, reached agreement with some local pharmaceutical companies in India to produce more than 850 million doses per year. So it's a real contribution. So, and I also spoke with Mr. Galvez. You mentioned that Mr. Galvez is a very, very important and is a tsar, as far as I know. Great responsibility to promote and to implement the vaccination in the Philippines. And I know that he also interested to promote the question of our mutual production, mutual cooperation in manufacturing the vaccine. We are ready to start the negotiation.
Please keep us posted on that, because I think a lot of Filipinos will be very interested in that cooperation if that happens. Ambassador, if I may shift now to some other topics, could you tell us about maybe, let me take a step back. Can you tell us about the Russian foreign policy regarding the Philippines and ASEAN? How does our country and our region figure in Russian interest?
Well, as for the Russian foreign policy and the priorities,
yes, sir.
I'd like only mention that this June we celebrate the 45th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Russia and the Republic of the Philippines. By historical standards, the period is relatively short. But looking back, we can say that the Russian-Philippine relations, thanks to the efforts of both sides, have come a long and fruitful way. The Philippines is a valuable and promising partner of Russia in the Asia-Pacific region. And we are ready to develop bilateral ties based on mutual respect for sovereignty and independence, not interference in the internal affairs. I believe it meets the long-term interests of our two countries and can make a positive contribution to peace and stability in the region.
Yes, you say that the relationship has been relatively new, perhaps because maybe of, would you say because of the Cold War and the Philippine links to the United States? But how do you plan to expand this relation? What are some of the priorities that were given to you from Moscow? What keeps you busy, I guess, as ambassador in Manila?
It's a very interesting question. Thank you so much. But it could be, the answer is also could be multilateral, I can say.
Okay.
First of all, we in this period of President Duterte, we signed a lot of agreements, and we create some legal basis of our cooperation. For example, we signed agreements on trade, on cooperation in the field of agriculture, cooperation in the field of energy memorandum. But the matter is that we should implement it and to realize some concrete projects. First of all, I think that we should find a common interest in field with common interests and to put our attention on this project. For example, I can mention that one of the field of interest of our cooperation is energy.
Energy, okay.
But energy, you know, that we are supplying some kind of 20% of our supplies, of our trade, bilateral trade is maybe a little bit more, 34%. I'm looking at my figures, is the crude oil and oil products. But it's only the simple delivery. We are aiming to expand our cooperation maybe in the investment fields. So I think that energy cooperation, it could be very, very important field of our cooperation, bilateral cooperation. The Russian energy companies are interested, for example, in modernization of existing power plants and construction of new power plants based on coal, natural gas, and nuclear.
Okay.
Such cooperation will bring the Russian investments and technology to the Philippines.
Wow.
Installment of new and efficient power plants will strengthen the cooperation in electricity generator sector. Of course, one can say that the Philippines is developing clean energy facilities, but I'd like to be precise. The nuclear energy is the second largest source of low carbon electricity in the world. After hydropower, yes, it's understandable. Right. It is zero emission, clean, and produced minimal waste. And in this area, we are the number one. Russia is the only country in the world that has a full cycle of nuclear energy from extracting uranium, enriching it, constructing nuclear power plants, the most important thing, processing nuclear waste safely. And the Russian State Atomic Energy Corporation, Rosatom, it's well-known name, is developing relations with its partner with a view of using nuclear power for peaceful purpose. As you know, on the sidelines of visit of President Duterte to Moscow in October 2019, the memorandum of intent between Rosatom Overseas and the Philippines Energy Department was signed.
Okay.
And it provides a legal basis for elaborating feasibility studies on construction of small reactor technology nuclear power plant in the Philippines. So I think that nuclear energy cooperation will greatly contribute to enhancing energy security of the Philippines, because it will also bring investment and modern technology to the Philippines. Another aspect, yes, it is understandable that you need also local expert to maintain the nuclear power plant. So they can get nuclear energy education in Russia, because the state corporation Rosatom is using the grants for educate the Philippine people in Russia. But I'd like to continue, because the use of nuclear energy for peaceful purposes is not limited to generating electricity, because nuclear energy technologies are widely used in medicine, in agriculture, to fight against, for example, cancer, and to extend the shelf life of fresh fruits and vegetables. So the local fruits and vegetables can be delivered to distant countries like Russia.
Right. Lots of applications.
So it will also increase the volume of Filipinos and capacities of fresh fruits and vegetables on our market.
Sir, may I bring in my other colleague, Faye Almazan, who's one of our business reporters. I believe she has some questions regarding this topic, particularly trade and investment. Faye, can you please ask your question?
Good morning, Ambassador.
Mhm.
Aside from the energy companies, are there other Russian companies that are looking to invest in the country, and which industries are they specifically eyeing? Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It's a very interesting question because there are many interesting companies in Russia Federation, but the Filipino market is a very big and fast growing market with a population
Mm,
of more than 100 million people. Filipinos knows less about Russian products in comparison to Japanese, Chinese, and Western
mm,
products. It's goes without saying. But with the multilateral policy of your President Duterte, who visited Russia 2 times in 2017 and 2019, the Philippines is getting to know more about Russia. So, answering your question, I would like to say that we can expand our mutual trade. Unfortunately, the pandemic dropped our bilateral trade, and in 2020, the Russian-Filipino trade turnover reached only $931 million. The previous year, it means in 2019, it was more than $1 billion. As for now, main Russian products to the country are black metals. Uh, it's something like 35% of Russian export. I mentioned also the crude oil and oil products, 34%, and wheat grain, 20%. But Russian export can be expanded by increasing the supply of wheat grain, poultry, and further opening a local market for wheat flour, beef, and pork. And I think that the Russian agriculture commodities have good quality, don't contain genetically modified organisms. And these products are very popular in our neighbor countries, such as former USSR countries, Mongolia, China, because they are well aware of high quality of it. As for another Filipino companies, I think that we have to disclosure our cooperation on other sectors. For example, I've said that Russian companies are interested to exporting coal, crude oil, and also I'd like to add LNG to the Philippines on mutual beneficial long-term basis. As for the Russian regional aircraft, I think that we can also supply Russian regional aircraft and helicopters, and
mm,
local firms can be interesting because the Philippines, with its more than 7,000 islands, must have enough fleets of aircrafts, helicopters, and vessels, because only using those vehicles you can easily reach distant places of your country, where there is no road, as far as I know. So Russian made trucks, light commercial vehicles of Gas Group and KAMAZ, Ural, may find their owners in the Philippines, and the Filipino bunkers is well known, and it could be used in transportation, implementing infrastructure project and jeepney modernization program.
mm. Okay.
So we have a lot of fields of cooperation, and also the pandemic demonstrated that the Russian medicine, drugs, and scientists are one of the best of in the world. And we said that we would like to cooperate in this field also.
Ambassador, that sounds very exciting. You talked about energy, you talked about commercial vehicles, you talked about the helicopters. What can the Philippines do to make it easier for the Russian investors to move forward with these opportunities? What can be done by the Philippines?
With the Philippines, I think to be more flexible, to be more
Okay.
open. Uh, and I think that I repeat that we can't go ahead without finding a mutual interest. But mutual interest can be found only uh, in dialogue, in negotiation, and you should be more open and yeah, propose a new field of cooperation. And we have, I'd like to be concrete, we have some business forum that could help to the Filipino people also to take part not only in the Filipino forums, but take part in the cooperation, our bilateral cooperation. I'd like draw your attention to the Russian-Philippine online business forum, which will be held June 1,
Okay.
organized by the Ministry of Economic Development of the Russian Federation.
Okay.
And also your Ministry of Trade and Industry, it's the Department of Trade and Industry of the Republic of the Philippines is aware about this forum, and there will be 3 roundtables regarding our mutual interest and mutual cooperation. One session will be the IT and digital technologies, and there is a lot of Filipino people and Filipino firms that would like to take part. For example, proposed participant from the Filipino side is fintech companies, Point West, Accenture,
Okay.
Softline Philippines. I maybe can give you then the tentative program of
Yes,
this
please.
business forum, because also it will be the session of industry during which it will be also the discussion regarding the cooperation in the field of industry, and the Ministry of Industry and Trade of the Russian Federation and the director, Mr. Katan, from Investment Opportunity and Aviation, Automobile and Electronic sectors will be also discussed. And the other sector of mutual interest will be also mentioned, the agriculture.
Yes.
So the representative of our agri-export will open the session, and Assistant Secretary Mr. Evangelista from Department of Agriculture of the Philippines also will take part. So there are a lot of initiatives that should be implemented, and we would like you to know that the Russian side would like to enhance our cooperation and to stress our ties. Thank you.
How could the Russian embassy be of aid to the economic recovery of the Philippines given the challenges that were brought upon by the pandemic?
I think that more we cooperate, more we implement our mutual project, it will be the real aid to the Philippines and to the Russia
Right.
for develop of this crisis. The role of the Russian embassy is to promote our cooperation.
So besides the, you mentioned energy, commercial vehicles, helicopters. So are there any particular Russian products that you would like to see more in Manila? I know we're very familiar with vodka, but is there anything else from Russia that you'd like to see more available in our markets?
Well, interesting question. More available in your markets. I know that it's vodka is also given association with the caviar. Maybe if you can buy from Russia our caviar, it will be a good combination.
What do you miss from Russia? I know the Philippines is a very different country from your home. What do you miss from home, Ambassador?
Well, it's also a very interesting question. What I'm missing? I'm missing a lot of things.
Do you miss the cold weather?
I'm missing the snow.
There's
no snow in the Philippines.
It's very hot in the Philippines right now.
You know that I'm only for 6 months here, and I'm waiting. Maybe I'm a little bit afraid because I was told that it will be a very not very good season as a rainy season.
Mm.
But I've said that what I'm missing is to be more concrete and more frankly, I'm missing my relatives, of course.
Yes, of course.
Because I have 2 sons and I have also grandchilds.
Are your sons
the means of
working?
communication is so good that can use also Zoom or
Yes.
So we can speak
Keep in touch.
Rather, but in any way we have. I will ask my minister to permit me to give me the permission to go maybe in August to visit my country, to visit my relatives.
Oh, okay. All right. Do you have family members in Manila? How are they enjoying your posting here? How are you enjoying your posting here so far?
I'm in Manila with my wife, and I think
Okay.
all of us are enjoying the Philippines because for us it's a very interesting experience. You mentioned that I worked many years in Italy.
Yes.
Totally, maybe 25 years I passed in Italy.
Some people say that Filipinos and Italians are very similar in personalities. Would you say that that's correct or incorrect?
Very interesting question. Very interesting question. Maybe the Filipinos and the Italian are very similar. Maybe. First of all, because I was told by my Italian colleague, Ambassador of the Italian Republic to the Philippines, Mr. Guglielmini, he said that in Italy there are something like 200
Filipino VWs.
thousand Filipinos which are working in Italy. So maybe in the spirit of we don't remind them our religion is a common. It's the Catholic religion is very important thing in the Philippines. I also spoke with the nuncio to the Philippines, Ambassador Brown, and as far as I know that now we are celebrating 100 years of Christianity in the Philippines. Yes.
Yes.
So maybe because of that, you can say that the Filipino people are very similar to the Italian one.
Ambassador, I think Red has some more serious questions about the vaccine. Can we call Red back, please, Red?
have you met with our health secretary Francisco Duque III? And if you have met with our health secretary, what are the things that have you discussed during your discussions with our health secretary? I know vaccines is one agenda, but I heard that you said that Russia is also considering the distribution of Favipiravir or Avigan in the country. So, can you enlighten us on your discussion, or if there is any discussion with our health secretary?
No, but you know very well because we don't want to not to to hide that our contacts with the Filipino leadership is very frequent, and I think they're very important. I spoke with Secretary Duque maybe 2 times directly. One when I arrived, and it was the conversation online, unfortunately, online conversation when I spoke with him. It was in January, and we mentioned all the question. Well, first of all, regarding the cooperation in the field of combating COVID-19. But it also mentions that there is a lot of fields of cooperation, including the field of producing also the vaccine. And another field of cooperation is the distributing our drugs and our medicine. But I know that the Filipino side is very attentive, very attentive, and Filipino side is examining maybe bureaucratically, I can say, but also because there is a question of the health of the Filipino peoples. All the question regarding the medicine and drugs. So our cooperation could be unreached of the cooperation in the field of distributing our medicine. But we should be more flexible, more prompt to fast our negotiations. And to examine our proposal in a more prompt manner.
Ambassador, I'm just curious about how the work you're doing to develop better relations between the Philippines and Russia. What are some of the things that surprised you about Filipinos when you came here, and maybe how would you like Filipinos to think about Russia? What are some of the maybe misimpressions that you would like to correct? Because we've had, as you said, a longer relationship with the West, and our relationship with Russia is fairly new.
First of all, about the surprise when I arrived in not very good period.
Yes.
In November. And one of the first words I learned in Tagalog when I just arrived was the word Bayanihan. Bayanihan spirit. I was surprised.
Bayanihan, okay.
But it is not just a word, but it's whole philosophical conception of life, which put in practice by Filipino people. I've said that I arrived last November during the period of devastating back-to-back typhoons.
Yes.
And I had a chance to witness how people were united their efforts to overcome the consequences of natural disaster. So I'm shaken with your Bayanihan spirit. Maybe because I found it similar to our Russian tradition of patriotism.
Okay.
That is one of the things that I expressed. Another thing that you said that, about the misconception. Yes.
Yes. How would you like Filipinos to think about Russia or Russians?
Well, as for the misconception, I think that it's wrong group because I have my conception, you have your own conception, and there's a lot of stereotypes in our mind, unfortunately. You mentioned that one of the similar words when you are speaking about Russians is vodka.
No, okay.
So, in other words, that Russian never smile and drink a lot of vodka, so they're very gloomy. I don't think so. That we should, in any way, change our stereotypes. Maybe because now the Russian change the same manner of life, and there is a lot of devotees of healthy life in Russia. And Russia are very open and warm, and there is no bears walking along the streets of Moscow, or maybe in other Russian cities. For example, Russia is a vast country with 7 climate zones.
Wow.
So the weather can get pretty extreme. Maybe in the south it could be reached 45, like in the Philippines, 45 degrees in summer, and in winter in Oymekon it could be reached minus 64.
Wow.
So of course the most of countries, but in any way the most of for my country is in the temperate zone, and for example the Black Sea coast in the subtropics. But I'd like you to know that the Russians are very peaceful people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because we recently celebrated the 76th anniversary of our victory against Nazi fascism, I'd like you to know that, to remind that the Soviets, because we were previously Soviets before Russians.
Right.
So we have this kind of patriotism because we lost about 27 million people in that war.
Yes.
Such nation will never wish to experience war again. But at the same time, it will never let itself and its people to push around. So we were able to give a positive buff to the enemy and defend the ideas of freedom, humanity, equal and mutually beneficial dialogue. So I think that it will be interesting to have more initiatives, cultural, economic, so-called people-to-people connectivity,
right,
to understand each other. I don't know whether I answered your question.
Well, you have, Ambassador. You know, I forgot to mention that one other thing from Russia that's very well known here is your literature. Your writers have a big following in the Philippines, including I think our foreign secretary is a big fan of some of the Russian literature. But Ambassador, is there anything else you would like to add? Maybe something that we haven't asked, maybe a message to our Filipino audience?
You are asking me about some message to the Filipino audience.
Yes, sir. About maybe as a final question. Yeah, that's my final.
Final question.
Yeah.
My final question, my final desire, and I think that's the whole desire of all the ambassadors living in the Philippines, maybe in Europe, everywhere, is to restore, to promote our cooperation in very different fields. Well, maybe people-to-people connectivity is most practical and more attractive.
Mhm.
For example, the cultural field promoting by our Honorable Consul in the Philippines, Mrs. Garcia. Uh, she's living in Cebu.
Mhm.
And is head chairperson of so-called chairperson of the Philippine Russian Business Assembly, for example.
Okay.
And because in Cebu we have a honorable consul, this Army Lopez Garcia, and this year, the year of, I mentioned it, 45th anniversary of our celebration. It is a secret till now, but I will share with
Oh, okay.
secret. This year, production companies of our both countries pursue filming, showing the film to Russia with love. Very interesting.
Okay,
name,
from
the
Russia with love.
title of this
Okay.
film. It's a love story. It's a love story between a Filipino boy and Russian girl who fall in love and decided to get married.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
And it will also showcases beautiful sides of Russia and similarities of the culture. Very interesting idea, and I'd like you that maybe you, through your newspapers, your channel, it will be a very good gift to our people in the occasion of our bilateral anniversary. And I deeply believe that we need such initiatives. We need
Okay.
more contacts. Unfortunately, also this contact is going online, but I think that maybe we can organize the same protocol events after the end of the pandemic, and I
Sure.
can invite you and your colleagues to participate in my protocol event in the embassy, in my residence. So through our concepts, through our cooperation, we should create the atmosphere of friendship and peace. That is my main goal. And I think that it is a goal is the same of the Filipino authority, of the Filipino leadership.
Thank you very much for that, Ambassador, and I wish you best of luck with your mission. I also hope that the situation here will improve so that you can enjoy our country. I know it's very difficult to enjoy your posting in Manila because of the pandemic, but maybe if more people are vaccinated, you could visit more of the beautiful places around the Philippines so that you can have better memories than what you have now of Manila.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Ambassador.
Thank you so much, President. Thank you.